All right, in class today we started 4.3, which was called Interpret the Remainder. Now, with this lesson we have 4 different ways that we would interpret our remainder. We just focused on 2, so this is part 1 of this lesson. Let's take a look at a division problem that we would solve. Okay, here's a division problem, and if you just see the problem and it's not in word problem form, you could solve it just like this. So you would think 6 times what gets me close to 27 but not over. I know that 6 times 4 gets me to 24. 6 times 4 gets me to 24, and I have to think 24 plus what gets me all the way up to 27. Whatever that would be, that's going to be my remainder. So 24, I have to count up to get to 27, and my remainder is 3. Now, in the problems that we talked about today, we're going to use 2 different ways to interpret our remainder. Our remainder right here is 3. Now, the 2 ways that we talked about in class were use the quotient and quotient plus 1. Now, it's super important that our first step always, this is step number 1, our first step is always to solve the division problem. We have to read the word problem, solve our division problem, and then we have to identify, okay, am I just using the quotient, or am I adding 1 to the quotient, which would be a quotient plus 1 problem. So for these lessons, or for these problems you're going to solve for your homework, you're looking at your quotient, which is right here. That's the number you're going to focus on. And you have to figure out, okay, am I just using that number, or am I adding 1 more to that number? Let's take a look at a problem that you have on your homework tonight. Now, on your homework tonight, you're just doing your odd problems. So let's look. The problem that you have says, a sporting goods company can ship 6 footballs in each carton. How many cartons are needed to ship 75 footballs? So our first step is to set up our division problem. We have 75 footballs, and we're putting them in cartons of 6 footballs in each. So our division problem would be 75 divided by 6. We need to figure out what our quotient is and what our remainder is. Now, in order to do this, I need to think about my multiples. So off to the side, I'm going to think about my multiples. I'm not going to start at 6 times 1 because that would be silly. That would get me to 6. So instead, I'm going to start with a bigger number because I have to look at 75 and say, oh, that's a pretty big number. I'm going to start with 6 times 10. I know that that's 60. 6 times 11 gets me to 66. 6 times 12, I'm getting closer. That brings me up to 72. And then 6 times 13, that brings me up to 78. All right, I can stop right here. Now, 78. That's larger than my dividend, so it can't be that. 6 times 12 gets me to 72. So 6 times 12 gets me 72. Now I have to think 72 plus what gets me up to 75? I know that I need 3 more. All right, so I solved my problem. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to figure out, okay, what does my problem want me to do? Am I just going to use this number, use the quotient, or am I going to add 1 to the quotient? If we take a look at our problem, a sporting goods company can ship 6 footballs in each carton. How many cartons are needed to ship 75 footballs? All right, what my answer here shows me is that I have 12 full cartons of footballs. So if I draw a little picture, all of these cartons are full with 6 footballs in each. Okay, pretend all of these are full with 6 dots in them each. Now, I have 3 footballs that are left over. They don't fit in a full box of 6. However, the person ordered 75 of them. That's how many they ordered. If I only sent them these 12 full boxes right here, they'd be missing part of their order. And I know that I would be pretty upset if I was missing part of my order. Instead, these 3 footballs would be shipped in another box. Now that box wouldn't be full like the other ones, but all of those footballs need to get to their final destination. So for this problem, I can't leave these 3 footballs off to the side. They can't stay at the warehouse. I can't leave them behind. And whenever I can't leave something behind, it is a quotient plus 1 problem. So my quotient is right here. My quotient is 12. I need to add 1 to my quotient. So my answer is 13 cartons. I need to send 13 cartons or 13 boxes full of footballs because I can't leave these behind. Even though it's not going to be a full carton, I can't leave them behind. This was problem number 3 for your homework. Okay, let's take a look at your next problem on your homework. This is going to be problem number 5. Allie wants to arrange her flower garden in 8 equal rows. She buys 60 plants. What is the greatest number of plants she can put in each row? All right, let's take a look. We have to set up our division problem first. She buys 60 plants and she puts them in 8 equal rows. So here is our 60 divided by 8. Okay, now I need to think about my 8 facts. 8 times what gets me close to 60, but not over? Well, I know that 8 times 8 gets me to 64, and that would be 8 times 8, and that's too much. So I'm going to go 1 under that, and 8 times 7. All right, I know that's 56. Okay, that's what I need. That's close. So my answer, my quotient, is going to be 7. Now I need to think about my remainder. 56. Okay, 56 plus what gets me to 60? I need 4 more. So I have 6, remainder 4. All right, this was step number 1 of my problem. Step number 1 is complete. I solved my division problem. Now I have to figure out what am I going to do? Am I going to just use the quotient, which is 7, or am I going to add 1 to the quotient? To do that, we have to look back at our problem and figure out what our question is asking us. It says she wants to arrange the flowers in 8 equal rows. She buys 60 plants. What is the greatest number of plants she can put in each row? Now, she doesn't want extra plants. She just wants to know the greatest number. So, what this is telling us is she has 8 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. And she's putting plants on these rows. My quotient right here tells me that she can put 7 plants on each row. So on and so forth.
And what do you call things that you use? We could use devices. They'll call out like they're...
Okay, so she has 7 of those on each row. Now, my remainder here says, oh, well, she has 4 that are left over. If she adds these to the end of her rows, now these rows right here aren't equal anymore to the rows that are down here. So she can't do that. She can't have uneven rows because our question specifically asks us for the greatest number of plants she can put in each row, but she wants them to be equal rows, 8 equal rows. So in order for her to have 8 equal rows, she can only use the green dots. She can only put 7 plants on each row. This tells us this is going to be a use the quotient problem. I'm not going to use this remainder. I'm not going to add those because that would make uneven rows, and my question's specifically asking me for even rows. So here's my quotient, 7. So how many plants can she plant on each row to have 8 even rows? 7 plants. She's not going to add those 4, make another row. She doesn't have enough. 7 plants on each row, and that'll have even rows. This was question number 5. All right, last one I'm going to work out for you is question number 7. A teacher wants to give 3 markers to each of her 25 students. Markers come in packages of 8. How many packages of markers will the teacher need? All right, so this is a little bit tricky. This one's going to make me think a little bit harder. All right, so the teacher wants to give 3 markers to each of her 25 students. Markers come in packs of 8. I need to figure out how many markers I need in order for my class to have markers. How many total markers do I need? Well, there are 25 students, and each student needs to have 3 markers. So I actually have to start this problem with multiplication in order to figure out what I'm going to divide. All right, I know that 3 times 5 is 15. Carry my 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 more is 7. Okay, so she needs a total of 75 markers in order for all of our students to get 3 markers. Now I need to divide. So she needs a total of 75 markers, and markers come in packs of 8s. All right, now I'm going to divide. 75 divided by 8. 78 times what gets me close to 75, but not over. I know that 8 times 10 is equal to 80. That's too much, so I'm going to go 8 times 9, and that's equal to 72. All right, there's my quotient, 9. 72 plus what gets me up to 75? I need 3 more. All right, so let's take a look at this and think about what this means. This means that she can buy 9 packs of markers, and in each of these packs she gets 8 markers. However, 9 times 8, this will only get me a total of 72 markers. Does that mean that one person doesn't get markers? That would be so sad if that person didn't get any markers and everybody else got 3. So in order for that one person to still get markers, because I have 3 left over here, that means 3 people aren't going to get markers. Or they're going to have 1 less than everybody else, and that wouldn't be so nice. I need to add or buy another pack of markers to make sure that those people get the markers that everybody else is getting. So for this problem, I can't leave any remainder. I can't have markers that are not ordered because I told my students that they're all getting 3 markers each. So I can't have any that are off to the side saying, oh, well, those 3 don't matter. So for this problem, this is a quotient plus 1. I have to add 1 more to my quotient to make sure that I'm ordering enough markers for all of my students. So if my quotient is 9, I'm going to add 1 to that. My question's asking me how many packages of markers will she need? Well, I'm adding 1 more to 9, which means 10. 10 packs of markers. I can't leave markers off of my order. So in order for all of my students to get all the markers that they need, I have to add 1 to my quotient. Okay, use this video to help. Use the sheet of paper that we worked on today and the sheet with those 3 holes in it to help you solve the rest of your problems on your homework. You should only have 1 more problem like this, and then your 2 other problems that you have to solve in the spiral review. Tomorrow you'll do the even problems.